Don't buy the hype. What are we talking about? We're talking about Oathsworn, right? Oathsworn, the hottest game on crowdfunding. Oathsworn, the hottest game on Board Game Geek. Oathsworn, allegedly, reportedly, the best game in the history of games that's ever been made in the history of even thinking about games, right? So, is it right for you, though? Is it really right for you? Don't buy it unless, well, let's talk. The number one point here with this game, like I say in a lot of other crowdfunding games, but I'm making this the emphasis of point number one for a very good reason. Like I mentioned, it's hot. It's hype. But is it really a fit for you? My number one recommendation across crowdfunding, I don't care how much money it has. I don't care how high above its funding goal it is. I don't care how many stretch goals there are. You do not buy a game for hype. You do not buy a game for potential. You do not buy a game for the what if. And this is practically speaking the biggest what if on crowdfunding since freaking Frosthaven. That's a whole nother video in terms of top games that we're going to compare at a later point. If you're looking at it and going, I am going to miss out because of how good everyone else says this game is. Everyone else is saying this game is the best thing since sliced bread with butter. Can't convince my kids to eat peanut butter now on bread for the life of them. That is not a good enough reason, folks. A fantastic, absolutely amazing game, if you can't get it played, is still collecting dust on your shelf, and it's money better spent elsewhere. How's that copy of Gloomhaven looking right now on your shelf? Right? How's that copy of Frosthaven looking that you're going to have in a couple months? Right? How's that looking right now to you? Speaking of those games, did you back Frosthaven? Did you back Tainted Grail? Did you back Darkest Dungeon? Did you back any of the 6 campaign games that have run recently on crowdfunding? Did you back Iridia? Did you back Lands of Galzir? Did you back ISS Vanguard? The list goes on and on. Chronicles of Drunagor, right? I can name off 3, 4, 5 more other, because what I tend to find is if you're looking at this game very heavily, chances are you already have a few other games like this, right? Did you just back any of those? Do you have Monster Hunter coming? Do you have Primal the Awakening coming? Do you have Role Player Adventures, which is coming soon, on your radar? Do you have any of those games that are going to be massively sprawling campaigns? Do you have Madara Season 2 or Season 3? Do you have time for all of those? I know you have the money, but do you have the time? Do you have the group for those? Because you have to pick and choose, folks. You have to. You don't have to. But you have to, right? You don't have to from here. You don't have to from here, but you have to from here and there. And that's the biggest issue from that standpoint. Number 3. If you are going to get it, right? What pledge level are you going to get? Do you really need a box that is twice as large as what it could be for plastic? For arms that are going to be interchangeable? Is that really something that you're going to utilize? Is that really something that you like utilizing? I'm looking at my Kingdom Death Monster over here in the closet in the base shelf of things on the floor, right? Never, ever, ever have I wanted to change the armor on a Kingdom Death Monster mini. Never. People sell the extra armors from those games, from those expansions, all the freaking time on the secondary market, right? Because no one ever uses them. A vast majority. I mean, you have the few people that are like, well, I magnetize them and I paint them all and then we display them. Yes, okay, those people, yes. Exception to the rule. Let me know in the comment section. But do you really need to customize the arm that is going to have a slightly different weapon being held in the hand? I mean, it's a workaround. It's a nice workaround for magnetization of said things, like I mentioned in the first place in that situation. But is it really worth an extra $50, $75, $100 to you to be able to tinker and do that? Or is it going to become very old and rote and the upkeep going to become more, annoying than what you actually desire as that? And is the standee version really something that might suit you better? I'm trying to convert you to the House of Liege standee cult only here. Just food for thought. Again, it's going to take up less space too. Space premium. I hear that all the time. It's a minor factor. It's a minor factor in things, but with the 4 or 5 other crowdfunding things you're backing right now, because if you're watching this, you probably are, or you're thinking about it, especially with the plethora and dearth of the things that have launched in the past 2 weeks, you probably are. So couldn't you use that money then to go pay for something else that you're really already probably going to spend money on? That's, again, food for thought. And that, is really the third point there with the standees versus the miniatures, right? Point 4, and this ties back into number 1. It's a boss battler, right? It's a boss battler. So this is going to tie straight into point 5 here in a second. You'll know where I'm going with this. Boss battler. This is not a dungeon crawl. It's not a dungeon crawl. It has elements of a dungeon crawl, but this is Kingdom Death-esque, Townsfolk Tussle-esque, and less like a lot of those other ones that I mentioned. Say for what you will, despite the comparisons, they are distinctly different. So, from a mechanistic standpoint, from a overall, what is this incorporating standpoint, yeah, they're different. Yeah, I'll give you that. At the same time, it's a boss battler, right? Split into 2, sort of the story narrative and then the battle element of things. Do you actually enjoy that? Do you actually enjoy the narrative side of things? Or are you a combat-only person? Are you a skirmish-only person? Do you really enjoy both of those? I think of something like Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Do you have that coming, by the way? Do you have Kingdoms Forlorn coming? From both of the same company, but very dynamic in terms of having both of those elements? Because lately, in the last year or so, I have found myself preferring drastically skewing. I kind of want more of one and less of another in that sense. So are you finding yourself where, I don't want to spend an hour and a half on each of those elements, right? Or an hour on each of those elements. I want to spend the majority of my time doing this nice, descriptive, the best book text narrative you've ever seen, read, or heard in the history of words. Or do you want to smash, bash, and crash for the majority of the time you're playing the game? Because if you fall at one end of the spectrum or the other, this is going to leave you wanting in some of those places where you're not doing the aspect that you would most prefer. Lastly in this one's going to tie right into the 4th point there. Number 5. This is 21 scenarios. And people always argue about this. They're like, I need variability. I need replayability. I need a 65-hour campaign that's going to be ridiculously amazing because otherwise it's only 20 hours. It's not long enough. 65 hours. Because people are saying between 2 and 3 hours for a scenario with both of those elements that I just mentioned in number 4. Averaging. I mean, again, people in the comment section are going to be like, I did it in 45 minutes total and I played a whole... No, you're not the average. I'm sorry. You're at the tail ends of the bell curve. The majority of the bell curve is going to probably be between 2 and 3 hours per scenario, especially when you're learning. When was the last time you played through all the way of a campaign game, right? Vagrant Song, Gloomhaven, long campaigns like that. Fall of Avalon, did you play through all of that with the expansions? Did you? It's food for thought. Because we like this grandiose idea of, wow, this is, I just need this much content to make it feel like it's worthwhile. That feels like the money is worth it from that standpoint. But the truth of the matter is, you're not going to play most of it anyway. It is. Case in point, I'm not pointing the finger there. I'm pointing the finger first here, right? I know what I speak of in that sense. That's why I speak of it, because I'm trying to tell you to avoid my mistakes at the same time. Do you really need 21 scenarios? Are you really going to make it through 21 scenarios? Are you going to have a good enough gist of the game? I just saw a review the other day. It was like, oh, review it after 2 scenarios. Anyway. Do you have the wherewithal, the bandwidth to do it from that standpoint? 1, let alone on your own. But 2, do you have a group of potentially 1 to 3 other people that's going to spend that much time with you? Like, I'm lucky right now with the cycle of life that I'm in. Once, twice a month at most. And we're not playing campaign games when we do that, right? That's difficult to plan, to organize, to have the same people there at the same times, the pickup, the teardown, the remembering. Yeah. And that's what goes with these campaign games. So can you meet that criteria too? If you can, great. You got all these things aced. You got no other campaigns coming. You've played every single campaign game that you own all the way through 100%. Go for it. Oathsworn's going to be a great game then for you. But if it's not meeting all those, if it's going to be just collecting a lot of dust on the shelf, I mean, are you better off buying something that's a little bit going to come sooner? Not that you need more sooner, but things that are going to hit to the table easier, things that are going to fly in terms of if you want to play them one night a month, one night a year, or one night every other week and, know what you're doing and not have any trouble from that standpoint. Not trying to remember 37 rules of pages of phases of attacks and differences. Because it's also, relatively intense in terms of the rules. It's not the biggest, most complex battler out there. But it ain't no walk in the park either. It's not just pick it up, put it out, play. It's learn it, teach it, remember it. And that is sometimes one of the biggest challenges in these games as a whole. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on Oathsworn. 5 key points to help you figure out whether or not you should be buying it. Or specifically, maybe not. So there you go. Oathsworn. Peace out. Stay classy. See you around.